Hey, I am Robert, aka Bert the Bookseller, and today we're doing the Booktube Newbie tag. This is actually a return for me, so this is Booktube Newbie tag, the return. I had a short lived Booktube channel from like 2023 to 2024, and it was really fun, but the things that happened are I got promoted to be the store manager at the independent bookstore that I work at. I had my second kiddo born. And then, like a year later, my house caught on fire. And somewhere in the midst of all that, Booktube got left behind. So I eventually had to, I scrapped that channel. And now it's a couple years later, I have capacity. And so we're starting things over. And I feel like I should reintroduce myself. I remember finding some friends via the Booktube newbie tag last time, so I'm looking to catch up with some old friends, meet some new people. So let's get into the newbie tag questions. Number one is, why did you start this channel? So the reason, one, I love talking about books. It's great. And two is just I have capacity to do it now. So I'm excited to kind of get back into it and making videos. And yeah, I enjoy talking about books. And one of the things that happens when you are the manager of an independent bookstore is that you spend a little bit less time on the book floor actually like selling books to people than you do when you're a hourly bookseller. And I miss that. So this is kind of my chance to get to like talk about some of these books that I'm obsessed with that I don't always get to talk to people about in the store, because it's just I'm running around doing a whole bunch of other stuff that it's not necessarily mean I'm getting to do the day-to-day like talk to everybody about books all the time, which is one of the huge perks of being a bookseller. And so I am making up for that with this channel. Number two, what are some fun and unique things you bring to Booktube? I don't know. Am I fun? That's a great question. No, I think what I bring to Booktube is my independent bookstore experience, and that I'm the manager of an independent bookstore. I'm also the main children's buyer at my bookstore because I have two kiddos. And that means you're going to hear me talking about books all across age ranges and stuff. I'm going to talk about picture books that I love. I'm going to talk about middle grade that I love, chapter books, YA. But then I'll also, the books that are near and dear to my heart are, sci-fi fantasy and other and like nonfiction and things for adults as well. So it's like I'm kind of all over the place. But what you're gonna get from me is like a lot of times I'm talking about books in advance of when they're coming out. I'm kind of seeing some things that maybe like they haven't quite caught on yet. So I'm not to be like, oh, I'm a trendsetter. It's more just like I'm probably not going to be talking about like whatever book is currently big in like book talk, booktube spaces. And you're probably going to catch me talking about whatever thing I found that is interesting that might be it's not coming out for another 6 months, or it's something just kind of like smaller, a little more under the radar, because I see a ton of books. So I'm really what I want to get to use this channel for is getting to highlight some of those kind of under the radar things that I love talking to people and helping them find in the store. Again, that's why you should go to your local independent bookstore, because the people there are passionate and they will help you find stuff that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And so that I'm hoping to get to extend that with the channel, and I think that's one of the things that makes me unique. I am also a writer. I don't think that makes me unique. I think there are a lot of booktubers that are writers. And so you'll periodically hear me talk about my own writing and stuff. But I'll try not to make that like too much of a thing that I talk about in here, because really the goal is to talk about other people's books, not mine. Number three, what are you most excited for about this new channel? All of these questions, I feel like my answer is basically the same. I'm just excited to talk about books again. But I think this time what I'm excited about is the community that I know is out there. I really enjoyed making a lot of booktube friends, and I'm still in some discords chatting with people to this day. But I'm excited for that aspect, and I'm excited for having a little bit more focus this time around. Last time, my old channel was called Punk Rock Cereal Bowl, and it wasn't necessarily started with the intent of being a booktube channel. It was kind of just like a catch-all, like everything. Like, I had some music, I had like various things on there. And so like this time, the channel's Bert the Bookseller, I'm really talking about books. And so like having that focus is going to be really good. And I'm very excited to talk about middle grade and picture books a lot more now, because whenever I had started my previous channel, I was not the main children's buyer yet. And so I wasn't as like immersed in it as I am now. I would talk about stuff that I read with my son, but now I'm reading a ton for the store and with my kids, so I have a lot more to say on that front. So I'm really excited to get to talk about that, and hopefully peer pressure some more adults into reading middle grade. Even if you don't have kids, middle grade is where some of my favorite stories are right now. Okay. Number 4, why do I love reading? This, I know it ends up with a bunch of these other questions, but I mean, it just comes down to books have always been there for me. Even at a young age, I read all the time. My mom read to me. And then I loved checking stuff out at the school library. And, you know, like I said, the books have always been there for me. There have been some very challenging times in my life where I remember the main thing that I had going for me was like, I knew what book I was reading. I knew what series I was working through. And some of those were like the Redwall series, Wheel of Time, the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I think that's getting ahead of myself, answering some other questions later, but I love the way that books can, one, they can take you out of this world, but they can also help you re-immerse yourself into this world. You learn a lot about other people. It's practicing empathy. It's learning other experiences. I grew up in Oklahoma, which is not known as being a very progressive state, and I attribute the reason that I do have progressive views to the fact that I read a ton and I learned about people other than myself. So that's one of the other things that I love about reading. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? Okay, so this is what I was just saying that, got a little ahead of myself. Redwall is first and foremost like my gateway drug into reading. I remember tearing through Redwall at the end of elementary school, early middle school, and like, my grandma giving me $50 for my birthday, and I was just like, we're going to Borders, and I'm buying as many Redwall books as $50 can get me. So it just, that's the series that really kind of like, that made me, oh yeah, I'm a reader. And then I think the series that made me a full-on addict is The Wheel of Time. I came to that in like 7th grade, 8th grade, and I've read it multiple times. I absolutely love it. It's very near and dear to my heart. So yeah, those are really kind of the things that that really made me love reading, I guess, is those two series. Some other things that stand out to me at other points in time are some detective books, like by Raymond Chandler, Robert B. Parker, Robert Craze. Those really got me into a different stage of my reading whenever I was in college. My professor in my professional writing program, we did an independent study and we read a bunch of like detective fiction together, and it was that was really cool. So that's kind of like another stage in my life was reading that stuff. Okay. Number 6, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I don't know, man. What's the average speed of a swallow? Number 7, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Okay, so I know the answer to this because I have done this before. But for me, it's keeping my focus on the fun parts of doing booktube and not on the sucky parts of doing booktube. And so by that, I mean like not getting caught up in the analytics, not trying to chase like follower counts, not trying to chase trends, not spending too much time on like coming up with thumbnails. That's why all my thumbnails are just going to be stuff that I've written on note cards. Not spending too much time on elaborate editing. I just don't, that's not the fun part for me anymore. I want to talk to people about books, so that's the deal. So I know that's a challenge because when you're looking at the dashboard as a YouTube creator, you see like they give you green arrows if your numbers are good and red arrows if your numbers are bad, and like the little dopamine receptors like, I want the good arrows, I want the green arrows. And it's like no Oliver Queens for me. I don't really care if we've got green arrows or not. We're just talking about books to people. That's the deal. I don't need the extra validation from hitting certain YouTube benchmarks. But I got a little caught up in that last time, and it was part of what made it more challenging as things got busier because I was still a little too focused on some of that stuff. So yeah. Number 8. When did you start reading? See, again, like this, elementary school. That's kind of a big deal. I remember just loving the Scholastic book fairs. I remember reading Del Toro Quest, The Seventh Tower. The Boxcar Children were huge for me. Magic Treehouse. Those were all the things that like really helped get me into reading. The Dark is Rising sequence. Absolutely love those books. So those were like that really got me into reading. And then I think you can trace that into like the various stages of like then you get to middle school, and in middle school I was reading the Star Wars Expanded Universe books, a lot of like random fantasy that I could find, and then I stumbled into The Wheel of Time, and then that kind of took over my life. And then in high school, I started reading like The Dark Tower, some Stephen King, but I was also having to just read a ton for like school. So I didn't read outside of like Wheel of Time and some Stephen King. I wasn't reading too many new things at that point. I was reading a lot of stuff for school. And then in college, I was my degree was professional writing, so I was writing a bunch, and then that's where I started to branch out into some new things because I had professors who were recommending stuff and people in my classes recommending things, so I had that kind of stage. And then after college, becoming a young adult in the workforce and whatnot, that's when I dropped reading the most, where I was only reading a couple books a year, and because I was just so busy with so much stuff. And yeah, that was heartbreaking. So then I picked back up in, let's see, probably 2017 or so, like that. Like I'd gone like 4 years without reading too many books a year. And then in that year, I started back up by reading a lot of Hugo Award winners and Hugo nominees, just to kind of like get me back into like finding new things and really getting excited about reading. So you've got that, and then my current stage is I'm now a bookseller. I've been at an independent bookstore since 2021, and I'm reading everything, anything, and everything. So yeah. Number 9, where do you read? I read anywhere and everywhere. I love to read on my phone. I know for some people that's blasphemy, but I started reading on my phone back when I had my first kiddo in 2016. So maybe that's when it was that I really, my first kiddo was 2017. So I was right. I got married in 2016. Look at me knowing dates and whatnot. So 2017 is when I really started reading again. It's because I was reading on my phone, because I found that holding a baby in one arm and a phone in the other arm made it very easy to read lots of books. And there's a lot of time with a baby where you're just kind of like, you are stuck with a sleeping baby and you are scared to move. So I started reading a lot there. But then, and now it's just kind of like reading in bed, reading on the couch with my boys. Now my older son is 8. And so he is able to, he reads to himself. So like sometimes we'll sit down and he'll be reading his book. I'll be reading my book. I listen to audiobooks in the car or when I'm going on walks. I read all the time. When am I not reading? That's the question. All right, last question. What kind of books do you like to read? Well, once again, I have answered this in several ways through this video, but I'll talk more in detail. I love sci-fi fantasy. That's my first true love is science fiction and fantasy. These days, I read everything. I help with all of the frontlist buying at the store in addition to the children's department. So I'm always seeing new stuff coming in, and things will grab my attention, and I'll be like, oh, I wouldn't have thought I wanted to read that, and now I will. So like things that I came to that way, So Far Gone by Jess Walter, The Left and the Lucky by Willie Blotton. Those are two just kind of like general fiction books that I've read and really loved. Right now, if you ask me what my favorite book of all time is, I might say Lonesome Dove. Like, I read Lonesome Dove, I don't know, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's stuck with me. I absolutely love it. I read a decent amount of nonfiction. I like kind of philosophy, history, anything that just kind of is going to teach me something new that I'll find interesting. So I read a lot of that. I read a lot of comics and graphic novels. You can see my comics behind me. And yeah, I read a lot of kids books and stuff. So it's like there's very little that I'm not reading. But you're gonna see a lot on the channel. You're gonna see a lot of sci-fi fantasy. You're gonna see a lot of middle grade because those are some of my favorite things. I'll do another pitch for middle grade here, which is that middle grade is one of the best areas of reading, in my opinion, because you've got these stories that they're written accessibly for kids, but they're not exclusively for kids. There's so many rich stories in this age range that I think everybody should read. They're so just like full of hope and full of wonder, and it helps remind you that like you can look at the world and be excited that like big things are possible. And it's just like I love the middle grade age range, and I promise you, if you read this age range, like you will find stuff there that blows your mind, and it's just is awesome. The other thing that I like about it, especially kind of compared to YA, is that like with middle grade, they kind of have a free range to use language however they want, and they're not really trying to make it seem like, oh, this is a 12-year-old that is telling the story. And a lot of times in YA, they are trying to make it really feel like it's a 17-year-old writing the story. And so you're not getting as much like third person omniscient or any like thing like that in a lot of the YA that I've read. Instead, you're getting kind of like close third person or like a first person. And in middle grade, you get a lot of like really unique narrative styles to tell these stories. And so I encounter a lot of really beautiful writing in middle grade. So yeah, that's the thing that I'm going to be pushing the most probably, in terms of like really begging people give it a try. And other than that, it's just good books. I like good books. I like mystery books. I like horror. I like whatever. If it's good, I'm gonna read it. And you know, occasionally I'll stumble into some stinkers. I always say if you don't read a handful of stinkers every year, then you're not trying hard enough. So cast a wide net, and you will catch some good book fish. All right, that's everything, I believe. I'd love to hear some comments from people. I'm on Blue Sky. That's in my links down below. If you want to read some of my stuff, I've got links below to that. And then also, I run a bookshop.org site for myself, where if you want to pitch in a few bucks to me, you can buy books on bookshop.org and give me credit for it. Or you can go to bookshop.org and select your local independent bookstore and give them credit for it. Bookshop.org is an awesome nonprofit, and you should use it more. There we go. With that, I will bid you all adieu. Remember, liking things is cool. Spend more time with stuff you like.